So welcome to our Tuesday's training as normal. I've got a few things that I want to highlight today. And if anything that I mentioned that you feel that you haven't got or you would like some further assistance on, then please just put something in the chat box later, and I'll make sure we do some additional training one-on-one if needed. So first of all, it's Tuesday. Are we raring to go? Is everybody up for it? I can see Mia's got a big smile on her face. Well done. Thank you. So I'm going to start by actually mentioning in a resource that I hope you've all got, which is Shane's book, Putting Excellence into Practice. Because one of the things that comes up time and time again is the fact that it's really hard for us all to make time and to get the actions done that are on our list. And some people get a little bit overwhelmed by the amount of actions that they have on their list. So I just wanted to point you to chapter 5, if you've got the book. Chapter 5 is called The Keys to Taking Fundamental Action. And it's really, really good because it deals with lots of different reasons why we have a challenge taking action. And, you know, I know we're all really busy, and that's the key to most of it. But there are several factors in here. And the first one it talks about is overwhelm. And I don't know about you, but I keep getting that one quite frequently, to be honest. There is so much to do. You start getting a feeling like you don't even know where to start, and it gets a lot of overwhelm. So in the book, chapter 5, he actually talks about these challenges, but also about overcoming them. And so, you know, for that overwhelm, thinking about how do we manage that, and what I thought was really good was in the book that he talked about there's a huge difference between feeling overwhelmed and actually being overwhelmed. And often we get into this sort of mindsets. That's right, Andy. We haven't got the mindsets where we over stress, and actually when we sit and actually plan our workload and structure it properly, then we can manage that overwhelm. And part of doing that is about making sure that we reduce the distractions that get in our way, you know, that we set up a proper system for taking actions, whether that's using your Outlook tasks or using Trello, or even, you know, an action planner, a paper one, if that's, you know, the right thing, and making sure that you have a structure to your day. Now, we're all really good at starting these. I'm particularly really good at starting, having a system-wise way of dealing with my actions. But then after a few days or weeks, I start drifting from it because, again, there's that feeling of overwhelm. And so one of the really important things is thinking about helping you to prioritize that stuff, because it's such a challenge that you make sure that you focus on what is important and really, really think about, should I be doing this, or can I get somebody else to help me? It's not about putting pressure on anybody else in your team. It's about giving them a chance to help you. So thinking about that very clearly. The second thing he talks about is confusion. And then this is what I'm more about focus on what do we focus on first. And so again, the book's really good because it comes up with lots of different ideas, in particular, prioritizing using the 4 quadrants that we've talked about before. And that's, excuse me, the urgent and important, the important but it's not urgent, the not important but it is urgent, and the not important or urgent. And if you remember, Shane said in the past about sometimes getting his actions on post-it notes and having a board with the 4 quadrants, and just ensuring that if there's something that's important and urgent, making sure that yes, that gets done, but again, who else can help you? But also for focusing on the important but not urgent. And that is often the things that we will talk about often in our calls, which is strategic, because often, although they have a way of making sure that, you know, that we want to drive our business and do the strategy, they don't become urgent, so to speak. There's always something more urgent. But because they're strategic, they are so important that we do plan that time. And that's why, you know, we say to people, put an hour aside a week, put just some time that you focus on your most important client. The other thing to think about again is when you write your actions, are they actions or are they projects? Because I'm guilty of this one, that I'll write down what I think is an action, but actually it's not. It's probably got 5 or 6 things, actions that need to take place in order to complete that one liner that I've written. So make sure you split it down so that you can tick things off, that you can accept that you've got milestones and that you can manage it. The third thing he talks about is perfectionism. And again, some of us it is a challenge for us. We want everything to be right. Part of being an accountant is knowing that things are right. And it's our nature. But we need to make sure that we come up with a comfortable point where we can let other people do work and know that it's not probably as great as we would have done it, or possibly not perfectly up to standard, but that we can train people and support people. So again, have a look at the book, because this is a really good example of how to manage that feeling, that need for perfection all the time, because it does cause so many issues within the business. Not that we shouldn't have perfect accounts, not that we shouldn't do our job properly. It's more about the fact that we need to know, where to let go of it all. The fourth thing he talks about is about fear. So sometimes we're worried that we don't want to do an action, or we don't want to get something done because we're worried that we might just fail at it. We don't think we've got the skill set. We don't think that, it's possible. In which case you need to be talking to your practice growth expert. You need to be working out how can they help you? How can they support you to make it easier for you? It could be fear of rejection. You might, pricing is a big thing. Sitting down with Time's Up for the first time with a client, sometimes that fear of rejection, that they might not be happy with the quote, sometimes puts us off. But if we are confident in what we're talking about, we should be happy that there will be some amount of rejection. Okay, so we need to plan that. Maybe there's a fear of conflict, and this is something I personally have a challenge with. My profile, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, is I don't like conflict. So sometimes I'll do things to avoid conflict, which actually make me more work, give me more stress, and I need to stop that. And again, perhaps that's something you do, that you get frustrated and you don't want to address maybe a challenge at work, maybe one of your team that aren't stepping up or whatever, because you don't want that conflict. But again, it's all about preparing for that, so it doesn't become a conflicting situation. And you can discuss that with your practice growth expert. They can help you come up with like a meeting scenario, think about how you can approach it and use the right language. And the last one is obviously feel of insecurity. What if things go wrong? What if our business fails? What if I can't support myself and my family and my team because you're helping them pay their mortgages? So we put a lot of pressure on ourselves about that fear of worry. And again, lots of stuff in here in the book for you to have a look at that. So please look at that, because it's so useful. You've got a resource there that gives you so many ideas. The fifth factor that he's put in the book, which I really love, is and it is something that I see again quite a lot, is this bright and shiny. You've got something on, you've got a work plan, you've got all these actions, and then something else comes along that's bright and shiny and exciting, and you think, oh, I'll have a go at doing that, or I'll get interested with that, and it distracts people, and it always has done. Everybody's always looking for that new thing, or maybe, I just need to, oh, sorry, Libby, I'm talking about Shane's book, the Putting Excellence into Practice book, chapter 5. Just, thinking, oh, I've got to tweak this, I've got to do that, all these little extra things, bright and shiny, but it can very, very much distract us. So every time something comes into your vision of a good idea, that's great, write them down, but then you need to be really, really strict with yourself, saying, is this going to move me towards my goal? And that's the whole point of why we're in business, to achieve your goal, or is it going to distract from it? Now, I did used to work for somebody who could justify absolutely every single thing that came into his line of sight as being something that could grow the business. But again, you've got to think about, how does that affect the team, your customers, what else is going on? Will it detract from the service that you're giving your existing clients? All those things, to make sure that the return is worth the investment in time and energy. So thinking about that. Factor 6 is comfort zone. So we all have those, don't we? Which is areas where, we're quite comfortable and we don't really want to be put out of our comfort zone. Okay. And a lot of you, I've mentioned this before, 18 months ago, if I told you that you needed to have your meetings on camera with clients, would have had freak out moments, to be honest. would have said, no, I'm quite happy on the telephone or when I meet them face to face. I don't like having to do it on technology, but you all are. And therefore there is no reason to make that next step, which is doing little videos to Zoom camera, to share, or doing anything else that steps outside your comfort zone. And sometimes we need to be pushed on this a little bit, which is where your practice growth expert comes in as well. We might push you a little outside your comfort zone because that's the growth that you have. And it's really important that we actually make that growth in our business. And sometimes, you know, we are going to be asking you to do things that are outside your comfort zone, but we're here to support you with that. We're here to help you make those changes. So rely on us, because that's important that you do make those changes and move forward. And factor 7, the last one, is there's not enough pain or not enough gain. We all know, don't we, that we only take action if there's enough gain or enough pain. And most of us, we put our clients first because we can't cope with the pain of missing deadlines, or that fear of we've messed out, or we've not been perfectionists, or we've not got stuff, and we put everybody else first without thinking about our own pain. We put everybody else's pain before our own. So you need to, again, be rethinking about this a little bit, about what is it, what are you losing out by not following your dreams, by not moving towards your goals, by not staying focused. So I'm sure that everybody's got this. If you haven't, drop a note in the chat box and I'll get your copy sent. It's full of loads of stuff, but I just wanted to focus, sorry, can't get my mouse to work, on this action taking, how to take action. Because action is the only way we're going to move forward with these things, you know. And that's when we look at the most successful accountants that have moved through AVN, they are the ones that have taken action, but as part of that taking action, they have got their team to take action with them, and that's the most important thing. Right, I want to just share something else that we've got, that I'll just share my screen. Another resource that you've got by working with us. Okay. So I want to talk about profiles, because again, when we talk about the fear of rejection or confrontation, or you know, all those worries that we have, and that's a lot of our pain, is our worry and our fear. A lot of it comes down to our personal profile. But that doesn't mean that we can't use that to our strengths. You don't use it. That could become our superpower. That could be something that actually really helps us. And part of understanding and knowing the best way to deal with those issues so that we can avoid those confrontations, we can avoid those main issues, is understanding each other. But first of all, we need to understand ourselves. So we have a way of using disc profiling. Okay. I'm going to talk about this in a little minute. Okay. And if you want, we can disc profile you and we can disc profile your team. And what that allows us to do is help you determine the strengths and the fears and the motivators and the value to the organization each person brings. And I've been doing this a lot for quite a few members to help them as a management tool. I know that came up on Thursday, that we don't like the word management tool, but it's about helping people be the most comfortable in the role that they have within your business, to therefore be the most effective and the most happy, because a happy person in your team will give you the best of themselves. And if you can understand how that person likes to be motivated, how that person likes to work, how that person likes to be communicated with, then you're going to get the most harmonious relationship within your team. And that can be really, really important. And so when we do that, we get graphs, and we, as part of the fee for us doing this, and there's an order form in System Builder, we actually get the graphs and we explain all about the profile. And you can see that we have the things that are above the line, which are things that people can see. They're the visible stuff. So that's easy to read about people normally. You can see that quite clearly. And then there's the things below, which are the roots. They're the things that hold people. They're the sort of foundations, and they're just as important to understand about people. Not always quite so easy to see. And we can then talk about that. We share it with the person so if it's a team member, we would also share it with the team, explaining it to themselves so they can see their strengths and tell us whether what we're saying is true. I have to tell you that 100% of the time it's been true. And then we feed back to you as the business owner to explain the best way of getting that person engaged with the business. But I thought, just as a little bit for now, it'd be worth you having a look at these. So here are some words that link to the DISC profiling. So this left column is the D, the drivers. I is the influencers, S is the steadiness as called about, and then C is the compliance. So just for a couple of minutes, I would like you to look at these words and just write down how many above the line, this is the line, you have in each of these, the D, I, S, and C, and how many do you have below the line? So if you read these words, how many of them jump out at you and you go, yep, that's me. So just take a couple of minutes and have a think about this. How are we doing, everybody? So just in the chat box, just put which one of those above the lines, the D, I, S, or C, you have the most in. So just type in, was it a D, was it S, was it C, which would it came out of? Simon's a high S, okay. Raz is a D, yeah. Joe D, Andy I, okay. Who else? Come on, there's more of you on here. So what do you think was the most, you know, like above the line? Kieran's a D. He is a D. Yep. Howard's an S. Okay. Brian's an S. Okay. Steve is a D. Okay. And Giles is an S. Yeah, you see, now this is interesting, isn't it? Okay. Well, Steve, this is interesting because Steve has changed. He said he wasn't a D last time, and that's true. Okay. And this is because sometimes you do have a confident thing, and it might be that, you know, you realize that in the role that you are at the moment, you have become more of something than another. It might not be your natural stance. And when we do graphs, we do how you see yourself, then we see how you are behaving at work, which may or may not be different. And then we see how you work under pressure. And so again, we can say, okay, when we know that we're going to come up to pressure times, these are the ways to help our team because we know that this is going to be the issue. So it's interesting, isn't it, that quite a lot of you were high S, which is that methodical, good listener, you know, the dependable, approachable, which is, you know, a really good. So and they're often people, they're good at communication as far as sort of connecting the team together. And then you've got quite a lot of you that are Ds. So Ds are the drivers, and part of you has to be that as a business owner because you need to be driving the business forward. So, you know, but I can imagine some of you, you know, maybe you're seeing some of those words and you're not really happy that they're there. So it's an interesting thing, just as a very general thing, just to look at those words and go, okay, does that tell me something about the way I'm behaving now? Do I need to think about that? But more importantly, then thinking about your team and thinking about how they are on this. So what words will jump to mind for some of your team? And importantly, you know, what do we need to manage that? Okay. And if you remember, Shane talked about the words below the line. And some of these are not negative words. They can come across as negative words: hesitant, mild-mannered, non-demanding, accommodating, you know, that, but you don't want somebody who is a high D if you want them to just sit down and get on with bookkeeping. You want them to be getting on with stuff. So you don't want a high D in them. You want them D that's lower. Again, the high I, you've got low I is reserved, reflective, suspicious, self-conscious, probing, serious. Again, they might be real strengths that you need from somebody. If you want, you know, if you're doing forensic accounting, you might need somebody who's, you know, very probing and suspicious and checks things out and serious and gets things moving. So they might want to have the I below the line. On the S, you've got below the S is alert, active, restless, demonstrative. Again, if you want somebody who really drives things forward, keeps things moving, likes to go into new projects, likes to try new things, then below the line for S might be a good thing. And then we're on the C, we've got firm, persistent, stubborn, strong-willed, independent. And if you remember, Shane mentions this at Masterclass, you know, that when we look at Victoria, our events manager, she has that low below the line C, but actually it's quite important because we need her to be really good, strong-willed and stubborn and independent to be able to go and connect and negotiate with venues for events. So there are all good skills, they're just in different places. It's always worth having a look and seeing that. And first of all, being able to look at yourself and think, okay, what do I need to tell people about myself in order to make sure that things work better, and how do people see me? Okay. And then actually, how do we move forward with this? So those of you who D, you know, this is good. You're actually going to be really driving. I'm not saying the others don't, because somebody who is an high S or a high C, understanding what they know, having a clear confidence about what they can deliver, they can be very driving and can make lots of decisions and move things forward too. But here, look, you've got Heidi's are really good at troubleshooting. You know, they can create instant solutions, move things forward. High I, they're good at the sort of favorable impressions. So they might be good at sort of sales. They may be good at morale boosting. So if you've got like small teams, the high I person is usually the person that will organize you all going out for a drink or afternoon tea or something fun that we can all do together, and boosting morale. The high S is one that actually is really good at specialist stuff, skills. So you've got somebody at high S, they're probably, you know, those tax specialists, or maybe they could be your champions for certain tools, like benchmark or simple stuff that works, because they're happy that once they understand, they can, as a specialist, they can really get people excited through by doing that, moving through, and they're good listeners. And the high C here is about making sure the detailed stuff's done, being able to enforce the quality in directors. So sometimes, you know, they're quite good as well at being your systems champion, making sure that they're giving you some proper reports about what's going on in the business. Okay. But if you're high D, you probably don't like people rambling on. You probably like to just know the facts. And so it's good if you've seen that you're a high D, then it's important to tell your team and say, look, I think I'm a high D, and what that means is actually I don't like. It's not that I'm being rude when you come to me and you tell me everything about your day or whatever else. It's just that actually I just need the full facts. I need the bullet points. I need to get on and stay on task. I like people to be clear and specific and to the point. Okay. And so it might be that if you get emails from people, you're like, just give me the facts in the email. Just be, you know, keep it short. I won't read anything. So Shane, there is no point sending him a detailed email. I have to give him just the facts. What are the key things he needs? Okay. If it's an email that I'm sending to multiple people, then I need to highlight the facts at the top and then do all the detail underneath for those people that are more high S and high C. Okay. So telling people that that's the way you are actually helps them. So for when I learned that Shane was a high D, it made such a difference to me because I'm high S, high C. I used to find that when he was like, just tell me what I need to know, I used to find that confrontational. I used to find that a big challenge for me. But once I understood that it was just his way of needing information because of his profile, it made it much simpler. It wasn't personal then. It was about, this is just how he needs information. And then I felt I could deliver what he needed in a better way. And then we didn't have those frustrations that we'd had before. High, they're really good at all the verbal stuff, but you need to make sure that it's followed up with written agreements. So some I do know there's some members in that I speak to that are high, and they're really good at the sales stuff. They can sit and meet a new client and they can talk about all the stuff. They're not so great at actually getting the agreement out and signed off, because once they've had the meeting and had the fun of the discussion with the meeting and found out how they can help them and given them lots of ideas, the admin part is boring. So we need to have a process to make sure that the admin, that what gets delivered is what has been agreed. But they're the sort of people that actually, they like that socializing. They like to have information about people. They're the good people, you know, in your business that will remember about a client's children or their dog's name or what they like to drink or, you know, whatever. And they're really good, but they need to keep organized. You need to help them stay organized because they're not particularly good at that. The high S's, like myself, we don't particularly like confrontation. So we like to listen to all the facts, and we need to know all the information before we can make a decision. We're not good at rushing headlong into things. That doesn't mean we're not excited about it. It just means that we are good at sometimes looking at all angles. And so if you've got somebody who's high S, sometimes you can get a bit frustrated that they won't answer your question straight away, or they take a while to think about it. But they actually are somebody who will give some really informed decisions about things and discuss. Okay. So if you want something to do, tell them why you want it doing, and have it in writing so that they know exactly what the outcome is that you want. That's the key for them. And then the high C, they are detail. So you have to really clearly define what is the outcome and what is the timeline. I get some people again who complain about some of their team that just spend ages on a job. It's almost like they are such perfectionists that they are so detailed that you can't get the job off them. They take so long on it. And part of that is that fear that I mentioned earlier, that fear of making mistakes, fear of letting you down, fear of doing it wrong. But part of it with a high C is that they don't always understand what the outcome and timeline is. So you have to be really strict with them on that. And you know that they do need a lot of data. And so if you want them to change, you need to help them see how important that is and give them data about it. So it's really good about communication with people to make sure that you help them the best. Okay. So I just wanted to bring that up really, that it's a great way of us talking and I'll just stop the share about working better together. So and I mentioned earlier that part of the action taking that I just mentioned in chapter 5 of Shane's book, part of it is about making sure that you ask for help and other people help you. The best way to ask for help is to ask in a way that they will appreciate, depending on their profile, because then you will get the information you need back. I know there's a lot of people that have massive frustration that they give out if, you know, they ask for something and then it doesn't come back when they want it, or it doesn't come back exactly how. And that's just because they've not been clear enough about that. So just want that. And then very lastly, I just wanted to share with you a presentation that I did a conference 3 years ago, but I just think it's 3 years since I did it. So, you know, I do apologize if it's not perfect. But I wanted to share with you some information that I thought was useful at the time, and I think still is. And this is about presenting value. So my first question is, does anybody recognize this face? What about this one? Not interested. Okay. What about that one? Yeah. Or if you don't have children, do you recognize this one? No, not going to get this off me. Oh, that one. That's a terrible one. But thinking about those situations, they're all situations, aren't they, where you're put in a position, either with a child or a dog in this case, where it could blow up into a big confrontational issue. So my question is, what do you do to get the result you want? So if you want this child to give you the ball or to do something you're asked, or this one to put down his toys and talk to you, or the dog to give you the toilet roll back, what do you normally do to do that? So they're not yours, Simon, I promise, not your kids. But yeah, it felt like that, didn't it? When I looked at them, they looked like mine as well. Because I want you to think about using your skills and transferring them. You have skills at home that you could transfer to work and vice versa. And this is what I want you to think about. So if I am in this situation, the most important thing is that I have to think one-to-one. So with a child, it's probably the same way, you would go down to their level, wouldn't you? You would cut, and then, well, I mean, you could just shout and scream and have a stomp if you wanted to. You mean you could lose the plot and have a bit of a moment, but that doesn't usually get what you want, does it? To get what you want, you almost have to go into sort of a negotiations frame of mind. And so you go down to their level, you talk in the tone of voice that they accept, you show quiet assurance, yeah, you show confidence, sometimes you'll show a bit of empathy, and you try and work out a way to give them something of value to get what you need from them, okay? So thinking about that in business, obviously we want to give a client something of value so they will give us money, pay for it. But you have to think about this. So if you were just thinking on a day-to-day basis to how you negotiate and communicate in those challenging situations at home, how could you bring that into a one-to-one meeting with a client? So in a one-to-one meeting, perhaps you should be, closer. Should you actually make sure that you are, now we're on Zoom, I try and make sure that I've got the two pictures side by side, me and the other person, and I try and encourage them to do the same, or just to have their picture on so I can't see myself, because that's quite distracting. If I was seeing somebody face to face, I wouldn't be seeing myself back. And then I try and make sure that my energy is a really positive energy, that I get them in a tone that gets the best result, that I ask them what they need, that I think about, making sure that I give them that assurance. I show them the empathy, but I give them that value, something that they will get. So if I want that toilet roll off that dog, I'm probably going to have to give them a biscuit instead, a non-biscuit instead. There is probably no way I'm going to get that off my dog. So there is a exchange. It's some people could see that as bribery, but it's not. It's an exchange. And so thinking about when you're talking with a client, what can you do to encourage that? So to me, it's really important that when you go into a meeting one-to-one, you're always thinking human to human. You are there to help that person, but they are there as well to give you something in return. Okay, you are not just giving away freedom. There is a relationship here. And the important thing is that when you are thinking about the values, you are also thinking your values, sorry, you're also thinking about your values, because that's what people buy. And that's why we do so much work on this in the positioning workbook, is because when people have like-minded values, you connect so much better. That give and take comes along so much quicker and so much easier. And so these are the AVN ones, and the values have to be driven by you, the business owner, but your team need to buy into it and understand it. So you can see on ours, we have 5 values, but each of those has an extra bit underneath that supports why it's important to us and what things we need to do. So that I have, showing your values to a client, sharing those on your website, in your office, if you're back in the office, having them up on your wall or whatever else, again, gives that one-to-one feeling. It's really important. And for you, maybe there's another connection. So what is the connection that you can make? What is the connection for you? I'm really lucky that in my job, I'm allowed to make a difference. And that's what a lot of people want to do. So not only do I make a difference by hopefully helping you as accountants and giving you support and training and the ability and the belief, self-belief to change your practice, but also every time I make a call, clean water and sanitation is given to somebody, to a family. Okay, and that to me that's one of the things that's important to me. I believe everybody should have clean water. I believe everybody should have access to being able to drink, not die of thirst or germs or whatever else they can pick up. That's the thing that drives me. Now, everyone in our team has a different driver in here, and so everything we do is connected to one of these global goals. Now, I'm not saying you have to be like this, but it makes it important, doesn't it? And then connecting then what you do with a client to these goals is also important. So be able to show your client, okay, every time that we do a tax return, okay, we will help life below the water, or we actually ask, or you could ask them which of these 17, I don't know why I've got that extra line there, I need to change that, which of these 17 are important to you. I will give something, I will put some, I will send some donation to something that helps on that point. So making that connection one-to-one is really important. So thinking about connections. So one-to-one, think about human to human, think about creating a connection and making sure it's relevant to them. So which of those perhaps global goals is most important, or what is it that's important to them that you can connect to? And then finally, obviously ensuring delivery, because that's the important bit. Make sure that happens. So part of the delivery, obviously, we've talked about this the other day, was about the numbers folder. And really important to make sure that the team have confidence to present and deliver value in all sorts of things. It's interesting, I've just been speaking to Val Wishart, and she was saying all her team are advisors, everybody, no matter who they are, from the person who answers the phone to herself, they're all advisors, because what happens is that when a client rings up, they know they can ask a question. And the joy with having things digital now, like she said, somebody rang up and said, I think I'm nearing the VAT threshold, I need to make a decision. Do I take a month off, or do I bite the bullet and become VAT registered? Can you check? And of course, she could just go straight onto zero. She could see what the turnover was. It was all live data. They could give them advice. And it's about that. And it can be advice about all sorts of things. But using the numbers as a structure is a useful way of doing it. Obviously, if you're going to present value, one-to-one's nice, but it's not very leverageable. So how about one-to-few? So the action here is to leverage your time and the value. And the other week, I did talk about the Business Builder Forums, the BBFs. So they're lovely. You've got over 60 ready-made presentations there that you can do in a small group, and you can do it on Zoom, and you could even make it limited. So to maximum 10 people, where you say, this is a safe space. We're going to talk about something, and then we're going to have a session afterwards where you can all support each other. So you can make sure that you are facilitating some information. So that's really helpful on a one-to-few. And Chris Booth, one of our members, is very happy to help people set up their own Business Builder Forums. They are very, very successful at running these Business Builder Forums, and he's quite happy to help support people. So thinking about what else you do, what else can be delivered as a one-to-few? What else could you do? I know some of you are doing like software training, some of you are doing other things that you're managing, but leveraging your time. And also, it doesn't actually have to be you delivering these things. It's taken a while, but it's no longer just Shane delivering everything. I'm delivering stuff, Jenny's delivering stuff, the other practice growth experts are delivering stuff. There's no reason why your team, if they're excited by one of the themes in one of the Business Builder Forums, couldn't present. It's a little bit outside their comfort zone, which we talked about earlier, but it's in a safe space. And if it's only with 4 people or 10 people or whatever, it's manageable. And finally, how do you add value one-to-many? Because again, leveraging your time is the most important thing. So the easy way to actually do this is to raise your profile, isn't it? To go out there and show people what you can do. So you could run an event, again, through a webinar or a live event once we're back. So you've got the £2.2 million event that's the link to the PMI. And as part of that event, which is a half-day event, both Chris Booth and Andrew Miller, who is one of our practice growth experts, are willing to present that event for you. So again, there's a whole system in System Builder, including their speakers fee, but you just top and tail it. But the beauty of that is then you're leveraging time, and you're also getting, commitment to additional services at the end of that event. So it's really important. Other ways you can present value one-to-many is through your blogs, you know, through your articles, like I said, through training events. Sometimes just putting things on the bottom of your email footers, you know, and some of those values could be I don't know, shortlisted for such and such award because you're showing the value. It could be that you could say, oh, a little, did you know that? And a little bit of a pointer that could be valuable this time. It could be featured in the business owner's guide. By the way, just to remind you that Friday is the deadline if you want to put your entry into the business owner's guide at the moment. Obviously, using brochures and getting people to help present, or you could be a guest speaker at somebody else's event. And again, I've heard quite a lot of members who've done that. They've been invited by banks to speak to their employees, or maybe other business clubs, or maybe entrepreneur circles or startup groups where you can come and be a guest speaker and present something like how to interpret the numbers, which is one of the BBFs. It's a really great resource that you can do, that you can present to many. Very simple process. So, you know, first of all, you need to think about how you can add value. And it might be that you need to get your team to understand what value means and how to deliver it. And so when we run the next value workshop, that might be something that you want to bring your team along to, because they will help drive that for you. It might be that you want to just nail your elevator pitch in the language that you and your team use to attract the right clients. So we do that in positioning. And as part of the positioning workshop, we test those out at the end of the day. We let people help us make those better. It could be that actually, as a business, you need to think more about how you communicate with people in a more effective way, not just internally with your team, but those words that I showed you. I'm pretty sure you'll have clients where you could pick out those words and think about how do they like communicating with. You know, and is it best that some people like a text, some people like an email, some people like a phone call, some people like a video call? Think about how can we embed customer service and understanding communication better? That's in our gearing one. And if you'd like help to start your BBF, then let me know so that I can talk to Chris or to run your Zoom seminar, because that's what we're here for, to help you do those things. Importantly, I think it's important for you to talk as a team and discuss what skills you already have and what you can teach to each other. So, you know, there are people out there I know that are doing things outside of work that are massive, that show massive skill sets that they're not bringing into work. So those negotiation skills, or, you know, I said I'm always in awe of people that run like scout groups or football clubs for kids or whatever, that the managing and the organizing and the training, all of that are so much great skills that you could bring into the business. And so that's really, really important. You need to remind yourself, you add value just by being you, just by the things you do every day. You have so much value in you. And what I'd like you to do is make sure that you keep what I call a thank you log. It's really, there are days where we don't feel like we've added value, but often we have. So every time a client says thank you, a team member says thank you, you get a nice email or whatever, record it. Have a log, whether it's in the back of your yellow AVN book, or I have a little folder in my emails that's like thank you emails, or things where I just feel like I got recognized. Because sometimes you have days when you're feeling you're not doing a great job, and you have to keep reminding yourself that you are adding value all the time. And also making sure that, you know, when you do your key numbers, we've talked about this before, you know, your own one-page plan, that you track that, because you are adding value, and maybe that's one of the numbers you need to be logging. This is a picture of my daughter. This is Katie, my daughter. And I don't know if you can see it, but at the bottom, she's pointing to a vole she found. This is at Bempton Cliffs a year ago, 2 years ago now, because of lockdown. And the reason that she's there is to remind me that sometimes you just have to stop and think a minute. As you can probably see, she's a little mini me. And she's a little mini me in lots of ways. And often that can cause us quite a lot of challenges and quite a bit of confrontation. And what I remembered, what I learned was that actually, if I could, when I started getting cross and frustrated, if I just stopped a minute and remembered what it felt like when I was in that situation and whatever, then it made a difference. So for example, I know that, you know, when she's challenged about something, often she will just almost back herself into a corner. She'll get to a point where she can't allow herself to say sorry. She can't allow, there's no get out clause for her because of the way she makes herself feel. And now, and understanding that, I now have a process where when I can see her getting into that corner, I can actually, I can find ways of changing the way that she looks at the situation. Because I remember being like that. And I remember thinking, okay, how do I get out of this situation? I need a let out. I need a get out clause. So rather than me getting cross with my daughter now, I give her a get out clause. I find a way of her being able to come out without feeling too bad about the situation. And when I think about those skills, I think that there's a lot of times where we talk to our clients where sometimes they feel backed into a corner. They feel that when we've talked to them about stuff, that we can show them all the things that they're not doing right, and we can show them all the things that they've probably not got right. And sometimes maybe we may make you feel like that. You feel, oh gosh, you know, I'm not doing as well as I should do. And sometimes it makes it hard for you to give people advice and to support people when unintentionally you've backed them into a corner and then they go on the defensive. And so it's about thinking about what skills can you give to help clients open up so that when you talk to them about changes to their business, they don't go on the defensive. They see it as an opportunity. So I just really wanted to help you think about when you can add value all the time. And sometimes the value is just allowing people the get out clause, a way out, and being able to give them the opportunity to be able to stop and start thinking properly about the way they do the business. So remember, all your skills are transferable. And this might be a challenge because having looked at all those words, thinking about you and thinking about your team, it may be worth thinking about your other half, your significant other. What do you think your significant other is? Should that affect the way that you communicate at home? What are your children? What do you think how you should communicate? Could that help as well? So not only am I asking you to transfer skills from home to work, I'm asking you to transfer your work to home, because you are really good at sitting down and talking to people and listening and having great conversations with clients. So, you know, can you transfer that back at home as well? And maybe then we'll have a nice, where we're building stuff together with our clients, or maybe we get that high five off our dog. So I just wanted to just give you that little bit of a fun thing about just making sure that we work together and we transfer our skills, because you are all fantastic at adding value. You all are making such a huge difference, and I want you to remember it. So I hope you've gone away with some thoughts, some actions. I'm going to finish now unless anyone's got any questions. If you want to ask some questions, that's fine. I'm really happy to answer any questions. That's not a problem. But hopefully, if you haven't already had your lunch, you can just now pop off and have some lunch and have a bit of a break, and maybe get outside and have some fresh air for a couple of minutes, because that'll make you feel great too. Okay. Any questions?